Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Japan, where I've just noticed the irony that I'm wearing my bandmate shirt. My Trident shirt's over there waiting to be done in the laundry. But yeah, so today,
Don't
well,
wash stuff. Don't try and feed us all that lie.
all right, well, today our subject, the thing that we wanted to talk about, the thing that we thought was important to give some updates on was, wait for it, I'm gonna
God.
unfold it. There we go.
Make sure there's no more white stains on it.
Trident. Oh, well, there you go. All the Trident fans just logged out after that comment. Press like and subscribe if you're still here. So
The visual K band that is Trident.
yeah, I was about to say that's the other thing. Just Neon, so you know from our previous episodes, Trident is a three-piece all-female band, not what a visual K band, as you were led to believe by your somewhat questionable research. Please never be a journalist.
Uh,
So,
yeah, I don't like Google anymore.
oh shit. So anyway, there's a couple of things that we wanted to talk about today, but I guess the thing that will kick this off was today, just a few hours ago. um, just 2.5 hours ago, Trident came out with an announcement that they kind of teased a little bit in advance. I'm just going to try and open up the document so I can read from it because it was on their Twitter, or X. And basically, what they were saying was that they are doing something which I think is very obviously a very clear response to some questions that the band have. I think we have all seen they've come under, which is that basically they said that they're going to do a 3 day show. I'm just reading from the poster here. It's a 3 day show, and it's the poster is really funny. It's basically just them seemingly underneath a cartoon waterfall, being very zen. And the idea of the show, the concept of the show, and just reading the translation of their post, is it's no syncing, so in other words, no backing track, no synthesizers, no stuff. Returning to basics before the new tour, will hold a 3 day Takegyo solo live performance by just the three of us. Now, it's going to be at Navy Floor Akasaka, which is especially interesting because Navy Floor Akasaka is a really small venue, like
Mm.
a really small venue. So this is kind of intriguing. I really like the idea. I'm just going to in chat. I'm just going to send through the poster so Neon can see it as well. It's quite amusing. Um, Now I think that this is somewhat in response to the fact that and I've mentioned this a few times. So people who watch the show regularly, I apologize. I'll just quickly talk through this again. You can see the post.
Yeah.
Um, I'll try and remember to put it on screen as well. Basically, and I had this when I went to the final show, the Zepp Shinjuku final show of their tour for Dream Up. And I mentioned at the time, I came out of the venue and I heard two people walking in front of me who'd come out of the venue as well. And we were a fair way down the street, but I heard them talking to each other. And one of them was kind of clearly had seen them before, the other one hadn't. And they were both like, yeah, I like them, but there's too much backing track. It's not them. There's too much, pre-recorded stuff involved. And just to be an annoying dick, I caught up and just had a quick word with them. Just like I was interested in like sort of seeing what they thought and everything. It was a nice semi-conversation, but just impromptu. But I'd heard other people say this before about Trident, and I've been somewhat on the defensive side about this, in that I think when you're a three-piece band, there's two valid ways you can do that. You can either be super raw three-piece, which I'm all for. That's great. There's some bands who are super creative with the three-piece sound, and they just use that, and they just do amazing things by having all the space that you have for virtuoso bass, virtuoso guitar, virtuoso drums, but no layering to overcomplicate it. That's great. There's great bands out there. But there's Chat Monchees going all the way back in the day. But the other approach to being a three piece, which I think is just as valid, is to say, okay, we're a three piece because it gives us lots of room in our sound. And that means that every time we create a song, we want the song to be a canvas where there's always going to be good bass, there's always going to be good guitar, vocals, and drums, but we can use the space to do totally wild and out there things in every song and be creative. And I think a lot of the time people don't like this. I know there's this modern push of people just dislike studio recordings compared to live recordings. I've pushed back against that. I did a whole video trying to explain the validity of both as their own separate thing. But so for me, when I saw Trident live, I loved it because yeah, they had some of the pre-recorded backing stuff because that's fine. That's not Trident. That's the backing stuff. There's no problem with that. And then Trident got up on stage and did the Trident bits. They did the guitar, they did the bass, they did the drums. So it's just like hearing them to a backing track. I'm still hearing them live. You know, the core of the song is still them. And yeah, some people might like it, some people might not. But obviously, just the sheer amount of I think there had been people saying that. And I think as a result, it was something that they are such a talented band. This can't be denied. They're so talented. Asaka is incredibly talented. To have a voice that good and also be able to play guitar proficiently at the same time in the way she does. Serena is amazing bassist and backup vocals live very much. And Nagisa is just one of the best drummers out there, full stop, and perfectly suited for the band. So I think there's nothing that they have to prove, but I feel like this is them just like saying, well, we don't have to prove it, but just for the fans, just to make it 100% clear, just in case you were wondering, yeah, we'll just do it. We'll just look, this is just us being us. And then they'll probably, hopefully, they'll video the show. I mean, Navy Floor is so small that I don't know if they will video it, but hopefully they'll video the show. And it will just be somewhere where if anyone brings up the question again, they can just upload it and go, well, look, there you go. Yeah, we do it our way because we want to do it our way. But if you want to see us just as a three-piece, here's us as just the three-piece. So I think it's a very interesting thing. And I do think it's partly strategical. I really do. Partly strategic.
I think when people think of backing tracks, I think people think of like almost like it's like musical miming to an effect. There's this, I think there's a this,
Milli vanillying your way.
yeah, there's like this preconception of it being a bad thing because it's not real per se. And I'm very much in agreement with you on this one. If you're a three-piece band, there's only three of you. You can't do 50 million things at once. You're gonna have to have either a band playing behind you or a backing track. Now, obviously, there's three girls on these small ass stages. You probably ain't gonna fit 4 or 5 people behind you that you probably need to do the songs that you want to do because it will get in the way creatively. So for like bands like Trident, I don't mind them using a backing track like at all. For me, I'm not one to turn around and say that you can never use a backing track in your songs. Because even like the biggest hardcore bands in the world, you have like 7 members still use backing tracks for certain parts of their songs with timed effects. Like if you think that doesn't happen, then you're you're basically being ignorant. You're a fool because it happens all the time.
I mean, I just say I can accept there are probably some people who only like the bands who don't do that and probably know that the bands they like don't do that. But I think in that case, if I think some of those people are making that barrier. They're going, well, I will not like this band because they use backing tracks and stuff. But I don't see how that's a barrier to enjoying the music. And okay, maybe you might not like the live stuff from a band who uses a backing track because that might not be a thing. Maybe you do want it 100% raw. I totally get that. I just think that there's this misrepresentation of bands who use a backing track as, oh, well, that's fake. Because there's only 3 approaches. You either do it, like I say, simple and raw, you do it with a backing track and say, well, we're going to use this freedom, or you add extra members to the band. It's like bands shouldn't be forced to add members.
Yeah, they shouldn't. I think it comes down to personal preference. Now, I just said that I don't mind bands using the backing track, and I don't. I'm completely 100% fine with it. But if you always gave me the choice between like trying doing a performance where it was purely live or with a backing track, I'd always choose the purely live
That's interesting. That's
version of
fair.
it. Because I just feel like that's more of an experience and just like the more of a different sound. Like the thing with a backing track is like a backing track can never go wrong. It can never be out of sync. It can never be out of a mix. You're gonna get the same thing repetitively all the time. Whereas if it's live, things can go wrong. Things can be out of sync a little bit. I mean, you've said this plenty of times. Sometimes when your band plays live and the mix isn't perfect, it can highlight something. It can highlight maybe the bassist a little bit more than they usually do. And you can hear that a little bit more prominently. And you're like, oh, that sounds really good. And then you can go see them again. And maybe the lead guitarist secretly turned the knob up, by 1. And they blare out a little bit more in the mix. You hear those cleans a little bit more vividly. So with a live experience, it's always it's always different. There's always that spontaneity to it, a little bit. And I think that's what keeps people invested and refreshed. And you can always turn around as well as a fan when a band plays a set and has a certain mix and go, hey, I was there for when this happened and this mix. And you
Yeah.
can't really say that with a backing track because a backing track is always going to be the same. So maybe there's like a little bit less hype behind it in retrospect. Another thing that a backing track has maybe against it is again that spontaneity where you can kind of go off the beaten track a little bit with a live performance, feel the
Yes.
crowd, stretch your verse a little bit longer, backwards and forwards. With a backing track, you're stuck to a particular pattern, a particular set with a particular time limit, and there isn't much room for maneuvering that. I mean, you can do it, but it's very difficult, and everything's got to be in time. So I think as from a fan's perspective coming into it, you're always going to prefer. I mean, this is just my personal opinion here, purely subjective, but I would always prefer going into a purely live performance than a backing track. But going back to what you were saying, that's not harkering that I would say that I would not like a band just because they use a backing track either. I think in the style of Trident where you only have three members, there's only so much you can do. Like you're going to need that. If you want to make your songs bigger, better, and for people to enjoy it with lots of things going on, then you need a backing
I
track. There's no way around it. I
I
don't
think it's
understand what people
also
want.
it's I mean, to take this in a slightly new direction, I mean, obviously we've said that this, but we've said that I think there's also a deep amount of creative validity. I think there's nothing wrong with saying, well, rather than, I mean, if you're a 5 or 6 piece band, because you've got that many members, you are now somewhat restricted to the fact you have to use those members. Whereas again, if you're a 3 piece band, that could be a conscious decision to say, we don't want too many members because we actually want to implement different things in each song. So it could be a very conscious decision to keep your members down because you do actually want more sounds, but you don't want to be tied to those sounds. And I think, again, I think that's totally valid. But it's interesting how you pointed out you can then live be tied to having to play the songs exactly on a railroad. And I would say if you were going to accuse Trident of anything, I think it would be fair to say that their live shows, they really do try to make them sound pretty much as similar to the recording as possible, which it's valid. I do like some live performances to go a little bit
Yeah,
differently.
I mean that's the thing. If you're
There's
watching it
nothing
live, you
again.
want it to be live. You don't want a studio performance. I mean, and this is a purely subjective thing because I had this debate actually with Baby Metal when they did the Polyphia thing.
You
Remember?
had a debate with Baby Metal?
Yeah, well, yeah, on the channel, incoming soon. The spoiler
Okay.
alert. No, yeah, no, that's not true. They don't know they don't know who I am.
Just say
But
that's not true at the end.
yeah, but we had obviously this debate with Polyphia where they played Brand New Day for the very first time. I
Mm.
had a lot of people turn around to me. I want it perfect. Studio version, exactly like the studio version sounded. But then I was like, we've already got the studio version, so why would you want the studio version but live? Like, wouldn't you want a new experience and stuff? But a lot of people were like, yeah, but then a lot of people were like, but it's the first time it's been played, so no. And who knows if we'll
I
ever get Polyphia and Baby Metal to do that ever again. So I just thought personally, I thought that was a missed opportunity. But a lot of people, it depends what you're going into for, because a lot of fans want that studio experience, live form. But me personally, I've always been live's live. I like the chaotic nature of it,
the unpredictability
the
of it, yeah.
unpredictability nature of it, and also to vibe off your artists as well. You don't want them to be
But
somebody
you
that just
can
do a record.
you
You want
can
them backwards and
you can
forwards
still,
throughout.
I will say, I mean, like Osaka and like Trident still have a great energy live. So I mean, it's not like you don't lose the energy just because they have to like perform. uh oh, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, Mrs.
Okay.
wants my money.
Ha! Okay, that's what misses are for. But
He wants
yeah.
the money. I knew what it was.
So we're all gonna see where Neon keeps his money. But
Listen, you've got
uh,
20 quid in the
uh,
bank and I'm buying you a Greg's. Get on.
buying you a Greg's. That is the
Buying me a
most
Greg.
English.
That's
That's
all
the
I can
most
afford at the minute.
English response I could have heard. But yeah, basically, I think it's again, this is not to take. I'm a still great defender. I loved their shows. I love every show I've seen by them, because their onstage energy is brilliant. They obviously play different songs than we'd expect. So yeah, I absolutely love that. And also as a band who their songs do vary quite a lot tonally and in range and everything. Again, another thing I like about them, I'm more than happy to sit back and just accept them doing those things. But of course, one of the other things that has come up is that off the back of this, and I think this gig is a brilliant idea. If it wasn't for the fact it's going for a ticket vendor who naturally don't like selling to people who don't have full citizenship, let's not get into that, then I would hopefully be going to this. But yeah, they're very hard to get a ticket and through this particular company. But the thing is that off the back of this really cool idea of doing this three-piece only show is the fact that well, Osaka has been doing the Gibson Epiphone Replays band that I know you've checked out as well. I mentioned in a previous episode when I actually went and saw her just do a guitar expo at a guitar shop, and she was just sitting there chatting and just playing the guitar. So the talent is incredible. But so seeing her do those songs with the Gibson Epiphone Replay band, that's been kind of interesting because of course that whole thing has been about purism, no effects or anything. Because obviously, in a way, those videos are just to help them sell guitars. So they want you to hear the guitars. They want to hear you everything production free. But they've been really good on those, haven't they?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed them. And what I've really liked as well is it kind of shows her in a new light. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a master at we've tried and I've just kind of discovered them fairly recently this year, really, to be honest. I've been doing
Because
a
you
few
thought that they were a
reactions.
visual K band, yeah.
Yeah. Google told me they were a visual K band, and I kind of went with that. This is what happens when Howard gives you 5 minutes prep time before a
That's
video.
the blaming on me, motherfucker. You said all you had to do was click on the images tab. Anyway.
But but yeah, I think it shows her in a really good light, as well as the other members as well. Specifically the bassist that's been doing the Gibson and Epiphone stuff. I've been really liking what she's been doing.
Oh yeah, so just to cover, so it's Asaka from TRiDENT is the vocalist and guitarist on there. The lead guitarist is Kaho from Fourlieu, who I've been a massive fan of Kaho from Fourlieu since I saw Fourlieu, who at the time were Fleur Fleur, playing with TRiDENT at Eggman, and the show they did there, I was like, Kaho, I'm usually not like one to just sort of like get obsessed with guitarists, but she was just so effortlessly cool. So
they're all great.
it's her, Chloe, the bassist, I believe she's a session musician. She's also an online personality. She's done a few things. And the drummer, I believe, was actually the person who did the motion capture for Bocce the Rock's drum work. So,
nice.
yeah, that's one of the reasons I did a lot of Bocce the Rock songs, didn't I?
So yeah, but like all those four kind of come together, it's really nice. Gives you obviously different sound to what TRiDENT usually do, a lot of covers and stuff. Really kind of shows her range a little bit more, which I've been kind of really appreciating. Going back to TRiDENT, not even TRiDENT, we can just talk about these gals. They can do it live. They've shown they can do it live, and then we're all playing.
Do it live!
Do it live! So yeah, I mean, they've got the skills to do it. I mean, I don't like this argument that anybody turns around and says that the reason why the bands use backing tracks is because they can't actually do what backing track. I don't believe that for a second. All these bands are humongously talented, way talented than myself and Howard. Although Howard might disagree with me on that one.
Yeah.
These girls can totally do all of that, but when you're live, you've only got one pair of hands, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I was actually kind of wondering because, like, in a way, like, so you got Asaka's doing the Gibson Epiphone thing, and you've also got Nagisa, the drummer. She's in the BB Reality cover band as well. I don't know if you've seen that. She did that one song with Fami from Love Bites was on a couple of their songs.
I
They Know
have
Pinya.
vaguely touched on it, but I haven't gone really in depth. I think I've only reacted to one song from them, which is probably the one you're talking about, actually, to be fair.
Well, the most recent one they did, they got Mayu on the vocals. The only reason I haven't Mayu from Nemophilia. The only reason I haven't actually myself responded to that video is that they are covering the band who shall not be named.
Yeah. Keep the audience occupied for 2 seconds.
Okay. So Neon is, in case you didn't know, planning to come here to Japan, which is why his name is Get Neon to Japan. And that is basically his effort to request money from you. So if you'd like to support Neon in his effort to come here and do one of these episodes with me in Japan, then go follow his channel. Anyway.
Yeah, sorry, cheers for that. It's been so long since she's used my card. She was like, "What's your fucking PIN number again?"
And you gave it to her.
Yeah, that was the mistake. The first mistake was giving her the card.
Oh, man. But yeah. So the funny
I
thing
got I
about the
got roped
BB
in for the promise of Greg's.
man will do anything for a good sausage roll. So
Exactly.
the 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 thing about the BB Reality Band is even like so. Obviously, they've had Mayu from Nemophila, they've had Fami from Love Bites, and of course her own fame. And when they do these things, every time they record them, it just looks like they've gone to a basement with like fuck all professional lighting, recorded it on like a phone camera or something. It looks really, really rough. And I think I love that. And even the recordings are like, I mean, we were saying about the Gibson Epiphone ones, they're like really
They
raw.
are like professional camera.
But they're still mixed really well, even though they're raw. They're mixed really well. They're mic'd up really well. They're really good cameras. Whereas the BB Reality stuff is like phone cam, and it's like the mixes are good, but like you can tell they're not like sort of like ultra
Yeah.
good. And it's like I love that because it's like it's super raw
It's
and
super
the
raw but fun at the same time. Like you just get
yeah.
the sense that they do that because they want to do it. Like they're just like having fun and like, hey, let's do this and let's do it for fun and fuck it, let's record it at the same time. Rather than having like a production person in your face going, right, you need to stand there, camera's gonna be we're gonna do this take 50 million times. It just sounds like they're like, it sounds like it's more in their hands more than
It
more than
does. It does
production
look that
value.
way as well, and also it looks like
Yeah, yeah.
but it looks like just a bunch of friends coming in. So I mean, clearly, Shien and Nagisa seem to be at the heart of it. They had Fami obviously came in from Love Bites, and they had the new guitarist, I think Pino's her name, bass guitarist. They've obviously had Mayu join them from Nemophila to do like a couple of songs, or one song I think so far. Maybe I think it's probably a couple.
Yeah.
Is the
I mean, I
overall
was
plan?
really surprised to
Um,
see Fami with them, to be honest. I mean, not in terms of like her ability or anything like that, but just since joining Love Bites, you don't really see many of the Love Bites members kind of go off and do things with other bands too
I think
much.
that's
It's very,
I think
very
that's
rare.
why I think that's why she wasn't in many of them because some of the videos came out when she was actually in Europe, like on the tour that you
Mm,
saw. So I was thinking to myself that probably when those videos came out, it was probably a case of like they'd been recorded long in advance and like so
mm.
it was something like that. But actually, do you know what? I never checked this. Ever since we did that episode where we were guessing how many monthly listeners different bands have. Um I don't think I've ever actually checked. So it's obviously like Love Bites are much more popular with an overseas audience. Although we were surprised at how few listeners they had monthly. So I'm just
I'd,
checking at the
I'd,
moment.
I'd love to see if that's gone up since the tour. I'd
It's
like to see
gone
it
up.
happening.
It's gone up a little bit to 38,000, but okay, that's interesting. So 38,000, Trident have 22,000. So they're roughly comparable on a sort of a general fame
I mean,
aspect. But
what was it?
obviously,
It was like
Fat
20,000.
Fammy,
It was like 20,000 the last time we talked about Love Bites, so they've shut up
maybe, yeah.
quite a little bit from that one. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I seem to remember it was like 28 and now it's 38,
Mm.
something like that. But that's really cool film. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the BB reality thing. But yeah, no, so when we were talking about the whole backing tracks thing, I think there is just a big relevant point to be made of the fact that it's like, you know, it's kind of it is a creative choice. And I think either way, I can totally understand if you just want it to be 100% raw. I can totally understand you being disappointed by a backing track. If you really liked the sound of the songs having a big arrangement on the recording, and then you turn up and it just sounds like a three-piece band, it doesn't have any of the oomph and scale maybe of the recording, then I can totally understand you being disappointed by that. I think it's just one of those things where ultimately it is so subjective. And I just don't like the idea that anyone demonizes one of the options because
Yeah.
they're all valid. I think if you demonize using a backing track, that can only be demonized if you are implying that the band is not capable of doing it.
Mm.
I
I,
think that's the only exception
I
if
think,
you're implying that.
I mean, I'm definitely going into like, oh my God, like, why would you say that territory here? But like, like this is the thing. I can't be reliable, but you need common sense with these things. I feel like common sense is not something that's like in vast supply or with like the internet or people these days. But I feel like if you're going into a three piece, I think it's for me it's common sense they're going to use a backing track where maybe the
It's common
stigma.
sense that it's a valid option. I mean, not
Yeah,
all of them do, but it's common sense that it's a
yeah,
valid
it's
option.
it's common sense that it's going to be there if they're going to be as versatile as Trident are, and you know, as widely ranged. I feel like going into like a band that has 7 members, and if they're using a backing track, I'd be a little bit like, why? You
I
know.
do, and you get sometimes people like maybe the drummer will have like a sound cue where they can like hit a pad
Mm.
that cues a sound. But using a full backing, I mean, yeah, I think if you've got like a 7-piece band or something, then all right. Okay, here's something I'm going to add, and I want to see your opinion on this.
Mm. Go
So
on,
when you've got
hit
like
me.
if you've got like a actually, I just realized I shot myself in the foot, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is I already know what the answer is to this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's say you've got a 5-piece band,
Mhm.
which is a fairly considerable band. Um,
Considered the standard.
I think 4's more standard, but I guess well, 5 is still pretty standard. So you have a 5-piece band, and like so you do that, but you have no keyboard player.
Right.
And I always say a keyboard player can play literally any sound. They can, if you want like a real sound of a real violin, it's not going to be exactly the same in the way it plays, but you can have that pre-recorded and put so they can play the individual keys. You can do this. So a keyboard player can be any instrumentalist. I'm always curious when you get something like a 5-piece band who really heavily relies on like sounds that are additional. Like, you know, they constantly have things like strings or synthesizers or effects like that. And you're like, well, hold up. But now you're a 5-piece band, which means you're clearly not relaxing on bare basics because you've almost certainly got 2 guitarists. And it's like if you've got 2 guitarists, but no one is a keyboard player, it's like now I'm a bit curious because it's like now I'm thinking maybe you should have just hired a keyboard player.
Mhm.
It's not like I'm saying you can't have a backing track. And the reason why I'm shooting myself a bit in the foot is because obviously I know there are band-made songs, 5-piece band, where they do use backing stuff. But I mean, I understand there's some similar to Love Bites.
I feel
Love
that's
Bites, you have
more.
Miyako, Konami
Yeah.
plays piano, but I
I
feel like someone should actively be playing it.
I feel like kind of goes back to your original point before, where you were saying that you know you don't want to be hunkered down by an extra member. I feel like they might create
But then why have you got 2
10 songs of an
guitarists?
album and only 2 of them
Why
might have a
why have you
keyboard.
got why have you got 2 guitarists then? Because that's the thing. When you've got 2 guitarists, then I'm like, okay, well,
Because one's
clearly,
rhythm and one's lead.
okay, well then, yeah. But if I just do not think a lot of the time that is anywhere more important than having all of the sounds that give the soundscape to your song. This again, I'm talking about bands who not so much bandmade in this case, but a lot of bands very heavily use backing sounds. I mean, one of the interesting things for me of Love Bites, and not to piss off Love Bites fans here, but Love Bites,
It's too late. You're
yeah.
already going to.
Well, Love Bites have got quite, maybe not enough to justify it, but they've got quite a lot of songs with like strings and stuff in the background.
Hmm.
And I'm always like, you have talented keyboard players. It's like, I feel like I would love to see a show where Miyako goes and plays a keyboard and plays the strings in the background and says, you know what, this one we can do with one guitar because the strings are more.
See, that's one of the examples I feel like a backing track is most useful. Like obviously Miyako can play piano, and she
That's right.
does.
Bring the subscribers back. Bring the subscribers back.
Bring the subscribers back. Yeah, don't like, if they haven't already clicked off by now. But obviously, you got Miyako that plays the like keyboard at the beginning of the songs, and obviously when the song kicks in and the keyboard's layering over the guitar, she's back on the guitar by that point. So obviously, the
True.
keyboards that are playing in the background is still her doing it, but obviously she can't be in 2 things at once. Although saying that, she probably could tap a guitar and play keyboard at the same time. Like I wouldn't put it past her. Um,
But
but
that's the thing. Why not play the keyboard and like let the guitar be the backing track?
no, it's always gonna be the guitar.
Exactly, because there's this implicit slight disrespect to anything that isn't guitar. Yeah, I'm going in on it. I'm going. I
Yeah,
know we've
oh
only got
god,
8.5 minutes left.
that's a
There's this
opinion and a
implicit,
half in it.
in the same way that certain people, no names mentioned, certain people would imply that all heavy songs have to have a guitar solo. Some people would imply that
Benedict's
as a
turning.
result,
Wherever he is now, his ears are burning red.
I get the feeling that that is interesting because in my opinion, I think there is like an interesting valid point to be said for that. It's like why would that not be more valid to have your guitarists come off and play the keyboard and let the guitar, or at least they let the guitar solo be done in a version that can be played by the other guitarist that you have.
Yeah. For me, like you said, go back to your original point about like why would you pick the guitar over the piano? I just feel like a guitar is one of those necessary things, like a motorcycle needs a second wheel. It just has to be
Oh,
to work.
that is disrespect. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, if your guitar is your second wheel, then the keyboard is the fucking seat. Enjoy sitting down on that, my friend.
It's the fucking brake light at least.
Brake light. No, it's the seat. If you don't have it, you're getting one right up here.
I still think a violin beats a keyboard any day anyway. So,
No, but
we're going
I
off
mean
track now.
no, but that in a way that's kind of curiously valid. This is one of the interesting things. I think there's this weird thing where like a lot of the bands I like are very big, like Wagaki Band, Alia. These are bands with a lot of members. And I don't actually, how many members does Unlucky Morpheus have? It must be like 6, right?
No, 6, yeah.
Okay. And so like there's like bigger bands I totally get. Smaller bands using backing, like 3-piece bands, I get. I just kind of get curious with like there's this area in the middle which I consider more to be the area where you got like maybe 4 or 5 members, and it just doesn't seem like they can be clear whether they want to have the keyboards in or not. But you know, at the end of the day, look, I have no disrespect for anyone using a backing track. I'm just like really curious sometimes.
What do you feel about like backing orchestra stuff then? Like for example, here like Metallica, sometimes they have like big orchestra pieces in some of their songs, but obviously you can't bring a whole fucking orchestra into a fucking small gig or sometimes at a stadium. Sometimes so you have to play that in the background. Is that acceptable?
I mean, look, I should probably clarify this because obviously we're just sort of like pushing it out. It's worth saying that
we're going off a tangent.
Well, no, I think technically all of these are valid. Any approach you take is valid. It's just a matter of opinion. Unless you actually are trying to hide a lack of talent, but I personally would never accuse any of these artists of doing this because, as you said earlier, I think they're probably more talented than any of us. So why the hell would I accuse them? But just in answer to your question, sorry, with the orchestra, yeah, I mean, if you can get the whole orchestra in, get the whole orchestra in. If you can afford to rent them as well, because that's a lot of people to pay for. But if you can't, then yeah, backing track. Maybe depending on the arrangement, if it's a very sort of like harmonic arrangement, you could maybe do it on a good keyboard, but you don't have to. It's like if you've got an orchestra, play a backing track because you
what I do want to say is I'm bringing into the debate though. I don't know if we've got enough time, but this is interesting. Obviously, with TRiDENT, you know these girls play the instruments. I might only be 3 of them. Like, yeah, there's a lot of backing, but you know they're talented. You know they're able to do all the backing stuff, even if it is pre-programmed. What would you say to like idol groups where you've got 5 girls dancing on stage, all singing, but you know their talent, shall we say, with a guitar in their hands is questionable when you know that all the music they're singing and dancing to is backing.
But I mean, again, this is where we get into that area where I've said before, I consider you know you're getting something different with pop. And you know, and just basically if it's an idol group, it can be a heavy idol group. I mean, I say with baby metal.
So do you think it's deemed as acceptable then for a pop group, but not for like a rock or metal group?
I mean, I don't like to pigeonhole groups, but I think if a group comes to you and says, look, the members of this group are all singing dancers, you know that you're not coming there to see their musical prowess on instruments. You know you're coming there to see their sing and dance, which means you're expecting the music in the background to be either pre-recorded or, if you're lucky, a band. I mean, like, for example, Kami Band. Love the fact that Baby Metal are able to do that, but they're able to do that because they got the money coming in and they can afford to get the people. And you know that, and also the type of music they do facilitates that. And with a lot of idol groups, each song is so different. I mean, you'll have an idol group who'll have the song which will be like saxophones in the background, maybe a saxophone solo. Then another one will have like synthesizers, and then maybe one will have traditional instruments. This is one of the glories of doing pop music, is that there are no limits on the sound you can put in the background. That's one of the benefits of pop, is that you are completely unrestrained. Every song is what it is. And so as a result, it's almost predetermined that they have such a variation that they might have sounds that don't even have guitars, or the bass might be deliberately synth. As a result, you would never expect an idol group, partly because you're not coming for the group themselves to play instruments, and partly because the songs are likely to be so unrestrained and varied. You would never expect them to bring a band who are going to play all of that, because it just probably would be logistically impossible, if nothing else. unless they're very famous, and some of these pop groups get very, or even solo pop stars get very famous, and then they can afford to have like a rolling run of Oatscry, her first few tours, and like her birthday shows at Habia Cohen, she had like pretty substantial backing bands with like all kinds of strings, brass, everything, band all behind her. But you have to hit a certain level of fame to afford that, because pop is more expensive to have a backing band because there's no limitation on sound. So
I think the conclusion of this debate is, like I said before, I feel like it's a purely subjective, person by person thing. Some things are going to tickle your pickle more than others, and
what a lovely turn of phrase.
I know, what a lovely turn of phrase, and I love reaching for these bangers. Um,
Tickle my pickle and then reaching for some bangers. But just for anyone who doesn't know what bangers means in UK slang, feel free to go look that up, and then you'll know why reaching for some bangers left me with a little bit of concern there after tickling the pickle. Dude, it's like, can we have any more masturbation references?
Yes, we can. Don't
Oh God, it should not have
don't challenge me. But yeah, it's a purely subjective thing, man. I feel like you go into it and you're either impressed by that or you're not. For one person that doesn't care, another person's going to be picky and pick it out. I don't think it's a never-ending cycle debate that's going to go round and round and round. So
never guess an artist's intention. In the same way that I always say, when it comes to selling out, you might see an artist sell out, and you might be right. Maybe they've sold out, but the truth is you might just be hearing a band who actually kind of likes the sound of pop or whatever's popular at the time, and they might be trying to jump on a bandwagon because they genuinely want to give it a go. So you can never guess a band's intention. You might think, or some people might say, "Oh, the record company influenced that." It's like, you don't know that. You don't know that. You can make a good guess, but you don't know. And when it comes to backing tracks, don't guess the band's talent. Maybe it's just what they want to do.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, if they use a backing track and you come out of a gig thoroughly impressed and you've had a good time, then that's mission accomplished, isn't it? Surely.
Exactly. And I'm very excited about TRiDENT's very raw 3-piece show coming up. I probably won't be able to get tickets for it, but I certainly am excited about it. And who knows, if I can, I'd love it. But
let's go.
I'm looking forward to seeing the videos anyway.
Yeah, all right. There you go. Visual K band TRiDENT. Go and check them out.
God fucking damn it. All right, we got like 25 seconds. So I guess it's time for everyone to be reminded to like, subscribe, and keep their ears to the east. Wow, we're pointing in the same direction way too many times today. Oh, there we go.
I know. There we go. We're opposite. That's better.
It won't look that way when we look at this video back, will it? It's gonna look different. It always flips it in post.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. Anyway, yeah, you can all fuck off now.